Se noi pensiamo a quello che succede in molti paesi europei, è preoccupante e siamo troppo, secondo me, leggeri su questo. Noi abbiamo il putinismo, il sarcosismo, il berlusconismo. Io non voglio buttare opinioni politiche, ma questo è preoccupante, perché c'è l'idea che bisogna avere dei governi forti che prendono decisioni e i cittadini non hanno voce, i giovani non hanno voce, chi si preoccupa più del futuro non ha voce. Questo credo sia il problema.
Grazie. La provocazione sulla Cina la vuole raccogliere, nel senso che certamente le grandi megalopoli che stanno sorgendo in Cina sorgono con un design disordinato, ecco, per usare il suo termine design.
Well, the Chinese are very determined people, so they are obsessed. You can understand walking in Chinese cities, it's pollution. You cannot see the sun. You think it's the moon. But at the same time, if the Chinese, they'll decide in 10 years to solve the problem of pollution, they'll do it. Well, it's a different way. I cannot speak about China. I don't have the right knowledge. But in my country, why we didn't have the problems of the economic crisis, it was less. Because in a country that with 200 million people, if you have an increase of consumption, so it's easier to understand why we could face this problem. There's a lot of people that they have becoming new consumers in the country. And economically, it's very stable, very responsible. I was a governor, and we have to make the fiscal adjustment. It was not only in my term. I had to be responsible for all the terms that they were before myself, my term. So, and I had to do it. It was not popular. We knew that it's not popular, but we did it. And the country changed, and it's changing a lot, and it will change. Of course, we'll still have a lack of quality on education, on healthcare. But what I think, comparing what you said, comparing Europe to fast-growing countries, it's different. Well, it's a kind of, we have a challenge, we have a problem, we have to fulfill many needs. That makes it work. And at the same time, it's hard to understand why in a big economic crisis, the world invested $3 trillion on providing money for the industry of cars, with the excuse that was for jobs, because they could do it anyway for the industry of buses that could provide the same number of jobs. $3 trillion, you can make life better all over the world, including all Africa. And I'm sure of that because during a presidential campaign, I was in charge by one of the candidates in Brazil to make a research about what could we do about the urban problem. And we made the survey during 6 months we worked, and we realized that the whole urban problem in Brazil is related to 7 metropolitan regions, and we start to see how if in every municipality we could invest in education and healthcare. So we made, And the result was the money to increase the quality of life was nothing compared with what we lose in the world casino of, how do you say, financially, how do you say, and in this world of casino, of gambling. So I think this kind of responsibility, as you mentioned, it's becoming very clear to many governments. And there's one thing that it's important. Every time when society detects a bad tendency, is the exact moment of change.
I have to stop you because we have no more time. You are very, very quick.
I want to respond to the controversial comments about China, and I'm obviously not Chinese, and I don't speak for China, but I would say I think that's a very old-fashioned view of China. I've been, since I joined KPMG in the last 4 years, I've been to China 6 times. I was there in May. I went to Chengdu, which is the furthest most west city you can go to in China. The sun shone. We needed our sunglasses. It was warm. During the Beijing Olympics 2 years ago, the sun was out for a third of every day of the Olympics. China is the biggest investor in new sustainable technologies anywhere in the world. If you go to the Shanghai Expo, which is on at the moment, the whole theme is eco-sustainability. China has not allowed the import of traditional American gas guzzler cars for the last decade because they didn't meet Chinese high emission standards, which has been a great market for Japan and for European cars. China is absolutely in the front line. For every coal-fired power station that opens in China every week, 2 close down. And the coal-fired power stations that China is building are all using carbon capture technologies, which we're fudging around in Europe. So China is actually showing us how to lead on this innovation. And there are whole cities, 4 of them in China, that are completely sustainable from top to bottom. All their energy comes from natural sources. So we need to have a modern view of China, and it does display, actually, it is possible to transform nations' thinking. Now, that is not an argument for communism as compared to democracy. Well, that's a bigger debate we need to have, but I think somewhere in the middle is the teaching element that encourages responsibility by setting the boundaries for responsibility.
Okay, 1 minute, Mr. Brooks, just the last minute.
Just if I could, because I detected a certain pessimism about the ability to change culture. And I think that there are some very good examples of where culture has been changed, other than through catastrophic events like the Second World War and so on. We've heard how city culture has been changed by Jaime. But if you look inside a company, companies know well how to change a culture. If they've got good leadership, they have clear policies, they spend a lot of time on training programs and communication, and then they drive it through and monitor whether it's working. Now, of course, that's a different structure than in a modern democracy. But because you've got so many people with good ideas working at change, you've got your NGOs, you've got the best politicians. Unfortunately, some of them at the moment at the national level in Europe are not showing quite the vision that we would like. But collectively, it's up to us to move towards the change in culture that we want. And I think if there are enough of us wanting it, we can get organized to do that, then I think we'll achieve it.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks.